Healing the Sciences by Robert Johansen, a compilation of 2 papers presented to the annual conference of the International Society for the System Sciences 2024. We stand on the brink of a war of nuclear annihilation that could happen at any moment. The doomsday clock is at 90 seconds to midnight. A longer term, but more certain threat is the destruction of the global ecosystem. Without science, these catastrophes would not be possible. Science is responsible. But in the world of materialist science, there is only a cause and effect and random chance. There is no responsibility. We have a major problem with science that the sciences refuse to recognize. It is extremely difficult to recognize the flaws of the system from inside the system. Jane Jacobs, in the chapter of her book, Dark Age Ahead, entitled Science Abandoned, comments on page 99, science has been making little progress in dealing with whole systems, particularly in biology and medical treatment. It tends to become arrested in the stage of singling out isolated bits with little grasp of how these interact with other bits of integrated systems. Very partial understanding, combined with typical scientific overconfidence, emboldens us to accept mistakes we would not otherwise accept." Unquote. System science is a contradiction in terms, an oxymoron. The scientific destruction of the environment is a result of the inability of the sciences to deal with whole systems. The creation of the atomic bomb is a result of the inability of the sciences to deal with whole systems and the irresponsibility that results from that. This inability on the part of the sciences is due to 3 factors: materialism, the deterministic worldview, and the analytic method. The analytic method takes an object and divides it into smaller components. These smaller components are then divided into even smaller components. A component that can no longer be divided is called an element. The former world was atom, but then the atom was divided into components. The path of research, then, is research into smaller and smaller objects. The focus on division into components means that the whole becomes defined as the combination of components. In the analytic method, the whole as a whole is invisible. You can't see the forest for the trees. The handmaiden of the analytic method is mathematics. Mathematics is the study of numbers. There is something referred to as the quantitative method. Scientists often refer to rigor, by which they mean defining any theory in quantitative terms in mathematical equations. This involves taking any term and seeking to find a way to describe it with numbers. All the other elements must also be defined in quantities, so that the relationship can be defined numerically. All relationships can be defined as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. The mathematical theory of the whole is called set theory. In set theory, the whole is equal to the sum of the parts. The idea of the whole as more than the sum of the parts is not a mathematical idea. What is amazing is the number of things that can be defined in this very narrow way. The tragedy is the assumption that this is the only way. Logic. To have a concept of the whole having a distinct identity that is different from the parts, we have to turn to logic, specifically the categorical logic of Aristotle. The Principia Mathematica of Russell and Whitehead was a proof that the central ideas of mathematics are based on logic. Mathematics is a subset of logic. For a larger view of reality, we have to turn to logic. Logic is the study of the relationships between ideas. Materialism. Studying the relationships of ideas is difficult for scientists because of their materialism. The accepted metaphysical doctrine of the sciences is materialism. Materialism is the belief that reality is divided into two worlds, the objective world and the subjective world. Objects in the objective world are real in the sense that they have causal effects. Matter and energy make things happen. The assumption of Newton's mechanics is that things remain constant until forced to change. Science consists of looking for the mechanical forces that will allow us to understand and control change. On the other hand, ideas in the subjective world are imaginary and don't make things happen. Therefore, science is dedicated to objective truth. The scientific method is a method for testing the predictive ability of causal relationships. The scientist seeks to be the objective observer, uncontaminated by subjective considerations. Storytelling. To compensate for the systemic failures of science, researchers have turned to scenarios or storytelling. If we examine the assumptions in storytelling that are missing from the assumptions of scientific materialism, we can find a better understanding of systems and a way forward to a more holistic science. Purpose, goals, intention. Stories begin with a person and a passion. As John Hirsch would say to his playwriting class, "What does he want and why can't he get it?" One reason story is missing from materialist science is that materialism denies the existence of purpose or goals or intention. It is called the intentional fallacy. This was the main criticism leveled against the Gaia hypothesis. It was, quote, unscientific, unquote. Meaning. The protagonist is not an outside observer, but an active participant in the environment. There are friends and enemies. There is conflict and negotiation. There is communication. The protagonist's actions have a meaning that comes from having a goal, a value, an intention. That intention comes from belonging to a larger reality and its purpose and values. Greeks versus Trojans, family versus career. Material objects, on the other hand, do not have meanings. The meaning of an object comes from the idea of a larger reality or system that defines it. There is no meaning without context. Meaning and ideas. The meaningful wholes or systems to which people belong are created by ideas. The definition of an idea is the larger reality of which it is a part and its difference from other parts. That larger reality makes it part of a hierarchical structure, a set of nested hierarchies. Causation. How then do ideas make things happen? How do they relate to the reality of matter and energy? Matter and energy are the media of information and communication. All substance has a form. That form is information. Form is a choice. Information is a difference that makes a difference. It makes a difference because it is chosen. Ideas can be created and communicated. The cybernetic processes are information processes that make decisions. Determinism. This idea of a world of decisions violates the determinism of materialistic science. How can scientific prediction exist as a complete description of reality if people can make decisions by choosing between alternatives? Medium and message. Form has a distinct reality separate from the medium. You can put this message on a screen or a paper or a sound wave. The medium is just the background for the message. How two parallel processes can occur in one reality requires a Gestalt epistemology that recognizes the relationship between information and matter as a figure-ground Gestalt. If one is the figure in the foreground, the other is the background. The medium is the medium. It is not the message. This is the point that Crick and Gamow made with the central dogma of microbiology. There are two processes inside a cell, the energy processes and the information processes. The important one is the information process. The DNA molecule is simply a medium for transmitting genetic information. Meaning. The reason the information is more important is because matter and energy have no meaning. Matter and energy are universal constants. They do not change. The only thing that changes is the form, the idea. It is the information that has meaning. The physical airplane is a medium for the idea of the airplane. The matter and energy do not make it real, they make it physical. The physical airplane is a medium for expressing the idea. The idea of the airplane gives it meaning. There is a way forward to a holistic science that can heal the moral and technical tragedies that science creates, but it requires abandoning materialism and embracing a dualism that recognizes the power of ideas.